What is poppin', y'all? We are back with another video. Um, I'm recording this in the morning, of course, because I love being productive, but I'm pretty sure around the time you guys see this, it'll be pretty late night. So if you like a video to fall asleep to, study with, play while you're doing an activity, you came to the right place. Also, if you're just in the digital art and you're trying to learn a few things, I got you. Last time we left off, we made some really big progress with the line art. For context, here's the original sketch, and here's what we got so far with the line art. I'm also a little bit sick, so that's fun. Right now we're gonna do the face, which is gonna be kind of difficult because if you remember in the last video, I had to push this guy's neck up a little bit so that way the proportions would fit. But yeah, let's try to make it happen. I hope you guys are doing wonderful today. And if it wasn't a wonderful day, that's okay too. These lines is too awkward. If you remember in the last video, I talked about awkward lines and confident lines, and you know, sometimes it's alright to have a awkward line. However, above all, it's good to have more confident lines. It makes for a better piece overall. See, that was not really that confident. I'm not super proud of that. That's better. That is right though. I wanted the eyes to be kind of closer to the bottom of the face, so that way the mouth can be kind of small. Yeah. We're gonna put some lines around. Oops. Maybe I should make those smaller. Yeah, I'm gonna make these smaller. So last time I was talking about the word Panglossian, and I was referencing how I found that word after watching The Long Walk, and how the character Peter in that movie would represent a Panglossian. So here's the funny thing about Peter. The entirety of the film, for me, it feels as if Peter is trying to show Ray the beauty in life, right? Showing him how to be an optimist, but also showing him that life is so much more than the problems that we face, which is valid, right? But in the process, I feel like Peter is also taking away from the things that Ray was feeling. And the thing that I love about this film is that it touches on the duality of life. And I'm gonna get to my point, right? So like I said, throughout the film, Peter, optimist, Panglossian, trying to teach everybody in The Long Walk that life is more than what you're making it. But also, he holds everybody accountable, right? He reminds them that they're not just mindless soldiers, they're human beings. So, towards the end of the movie, and again, spoilers. If you have not seen The Long Walk, I suggest you click off. Towards the end of the movie, it's Ray and it's Peter left, right? Last two best friends, brothers type shit. And Peter made it known throughout the film that he wanted Ray to win this. Right? He was comfortable with the idea of dying because he spent those last moments having fun. So he said in the beginning of the film that if he gets too tired, he's just gonna sit down. So he does this, right? And then Ray asks him to walk with him a bit longer. Now this part of the movie made me cry, personally. He asks Peter to walk with him a bit longer. And Peter doesn't know that Ray stopped walking. And then Ray gets shot, making Peter win. So here's what I'm talking about with the duality of the film. It's at this point that Peter says, fuck everything that I was talking about. Fuck revenge, fuck all that shit. And he asks for what Ray was going to wish for, which was one of their guns. And he does what Ray was going to do, which was kill the general. Now, well, for a good chunk of the film, Peter was telling Ray that vengeance isn't worth it. But you see how now the perspective is switching. I love that. I love that in the film. It shows the brutality and honesty of life. Everybody loves to say what they will not do, or they preach one thing until they're put in a situation that breaks them. It's the honesty of life, right? Peter was an optimist. Peter was a Panglossian until they fucked with that one person. I love that in the film. Alright, we're gonna clean up with small details. We don't have much left to do, really. Just adding lines and then working on the tie. Being sick sucks. Make sure you drink tea. Nah. Like I said, now we're just gonna add small details, like shirt lines. I love Peter's character in the movie The Long Walk because, like I said, for me, it was that reminder that life is so precious and it's much more than the... I'm not going to say smaller things because those small things can feel like the weight of the world, but life is much more than the things that we face, I will say. And in watching that movie, it was such a gentle reminder for me. It's funny though, because that same day, I had dealt with a situation that kind of fucked up my whole day. And it was so small. But I'm telling you, it's the small things that can actually do that to a person's day. Man. So, remember what I said earlier about or not earlier, but in the last video about big lines and small lines, you can kind of see the difference. Let's look at this sleeve, for example. You see how on the outside we have the thicker lines right here, but then on the inside we have much smaller lines. But then we have thick line right here. The thick lines for me essentially represent the border of the figure, right? Like, for example, I'm gonna give you a prime example of what we're working on. Right now I'm doing the petals on his hair. And on the inside I'm doing the petal lines that usually go on the inside of a flower, and I'm doing them smaller because I definitely just feel like it just adds that. I don't know what word I'm looking for, but I feel like you guys understand what I'm trying to say. Oops. Did not want that. Okay, now I'm fucking up. There we go. Kind of get a glimpse right here. Yes, sir. You want to remember with your line art that, and I said this in the last video, but your line art is an entirely new thing. It's supposed to be entirely different from your sketch. I like to look at line art as one of those doodles that you do in your sketchbook with a pen. And you notice how, like, with your pen, it looks damn near perfect. That's essentially what the line art is versus the sketch. The sketch is your rough draft to give you ideas of what you want in the final product. Your line art is everything put together damn near perfectly. You don't want to copy the sketch, but you do want to bring your ideas in the sketch to life. Alright, we are almost done with this line art. We just gotta clean up a few things. Nice. See, now we're getting somewhere. So on his belt buckle, we're gonna put some small details. We're gonna put the little loops that the belt goes through. Nice. Same thing on this side. Same thing right here. Actually, I'm gonna put this one on the outside. Nice. I'm just gonna clean it up a little bit. Nice. Now we're looking tight. I love this so far. And granted, it's not as complex as all my other pieces, but like I said, we're getting back into the feel of things, so we're gonna ease ourselves in. It's so funny because one of my students was telling me how they were overcoming art block, or how they were going through art block. And one, I wanted to commend them because being cognizant enough to recognize that you're going through art block at such a developing age is amazing to me. And I was telling them that one of the greatest ways to overcome art block, and I learned this from my art teacher and other people on the internet, is to start off by doodling. Because when you start off by doodling or with something small, other ideas develop. And trust me, I get it. I get it how hard it is to deal with block. I understand how it develops. I understand how to overcome it. For me personally, I would say that my block develops when I have visions of what I want to draw, and then I fail to execute. That's too thick for my liking. We're gonna bring that right here. Is that still too? No, that's fine. That's fine. But yeah, that usually happens for me when I have huge visions or things that I want to try and I fail at them. And when I fail at them, I start critiquing everything that I do. And eventually it makes me not want to draw anymore. But I've noticed, and this is a weird trait that I have, whenever I'm facing a challenge that's hard for me to overcome, I literally dream about how to execute it. So for example, I was playing Kingdom Hearts. I was playing Kingdom Hearts on Critical for the first time. And I was struggling with the boss named Zaldin. I could not for the life of me beat that damn boss. And then I literally dreamed about how to beat it. Literally the next day, went on stream, put belt to ass. That's how, and it's such an interesting trait, and I don't know if anybody else out there shares this. Same thing with art. I was struggling with dynamic poses for the longest. And obviously I was studying them. I was looking at other artists. But for the life of me, I couldn't do it. I felt like mine were too stiff. But I took a pause from it. And then next day, dreamt about it and applied it. And I feel like that's something that's underrated that a lot of people don't talk about, is taking a pause, right? Because I feel like that also contributes to burnout and art block, is that whenever the artist is frustrated because they can't bring that piece to life, they tend to still keep drawing. There's no shame in putting that pencil down for a second. And trust me, I get it. I don't want to make you sound like we're gonna wrap this vine around this tie for extra effect. But I don't want to sound like a hypocrite. Like, I want you to know that I've also had these moments where I have the pride, the ego, it won't let me put down that pencil. Or I'm genuinely so hungry to bring this piece to life. But at some point, you gotta put down that pencil because it's contributing to that block. And trust me, putting down the pencil a lot of the time, it helps. If anything, it's like with science. If you can continue at it, you can continue from different angles, but like, if it's like science, you test something out, if it doesn't work, back to the drawing board. In most cases with me and art, the drawing board can turn into months or weeks without me doing art. But I'm grateful for that because it allows me to come back and make more valuable, more thoughtful pieces. But also it allows me to have fun. Like, doing this right now, I'm having so much fun. And this is the first piece that I've made since fucking early December. So trust me when I tell you I'm not talking on my ass here. I get asked this question quite often, and I'm patient with it because I also used to ask this question. Good artists do. How did you get so good at art? And for that, I have a very simple and cliche answer. Practice. So I remember being I want y'all to know I'm not that old. I'm 22 years old. So I'm sorry if I talk like it. But in my art journey, I remember when I was like still blossoming, and I'm still blossoming, I'm still learning shit. But I remember hearing that advice and it not really helping. Cause me, I want to know the nitty gritty, right? I want to know everything. I want to know how to shade, how to do line art. But what it all boils down to really was that same cliche advice: practice. What I found that helps, or what helped and still helps, shit, was looking at my old art. Because that for me was a measure of growth. When you look at your old art, you get to see how far along you've come. You get to see how your efforts have been applied. You get to see the difference in how you proportion things. So that was a huge one for me, but also you have a skill, right? Art, a lot of people say you're talented. That's one thing that I don't hate, but it's also like, I get it. It's not a It's not a comment that's meant to be malintent, but it does feel kind of ignorant. Because there's a huge difference between talent and hard work. With art, you have a skill, right? It's much more than just being born with this shit. You have a skill. Whether that's starting off with stick figures or drawing piss poor fucking Super Saiyans, you started off trying to develop a skill. Let me give you an analogy. Art is like a sport, and I'm going to use basketball because I play basketball. You don't start off draining threes from half court. You have to start in front of that. You have to start in front of that rim. You have to do 10 reps until you get comfortable with form. Alright, so now you get comfortable with form. You're draining these 10 reps in front of the rim. Cool, let's take 10 steps back. You're damn near close to the free throw. Free throws are probably the hardest shots to make, believe it or not. So at first you're fucking up because it's new territory. But eventually you get comfortable with those 10 reps. Your form is dead shot accurate. So now you take a couple more steps back. Now you're at the 3-point line. This is new territory. It's much harder. It takes you a while, but eventually you get comfortable. You're draining threes. Now you're at Ray Allen territory. So you take a couple more steps back. Half court. Normally people don't shoot from this far, but you want to get so comfortable with stamina, with form, with repetition, that you're draining it from anywhere. See, half court is the tough part. Because half court, it's an unorthodox place to practice from. A lot of people don't do that shit. But you do it. And eventually, with time and repetition, you get comfortable with it. See, I love that word right there. That's our word of the day, repetition. Because the same thing applies to art. You start off with stick figures or drawing objects. That was one thing that my art teacher tried to really heavily iterate to us. Just try drawing random objects. Because you can learn a lot from just looking at a random object. Like for me, I could see where the light is coming from on here. I could see the different colors in this object that put together this object. Like I have hints of light blue on here. I have really dark grays. I have whites on here. There's colors that you wouldn't even think about that are on a lot of the objects in your room that you can apply. Let's take my shirt for example. We got brown. We have dark brown shadows. We have really light brown light. And then in a certain light, we have kind of a hue of red. Getting back to my point, so I'm not getting off topic. You start off drawing those small things. Now we're going to take 10 steps back. Really, I feel like for any artist, this really should be the first thing you study is human anatomy, right? The study of the human body. Because whether you like it or not, at some point in your art journey, you're going to have to study human anatomy. You're going to have to study different shapes, how to form them, everybody's weakness. You're going to have to study all these things. I feel like that comes later on down the line, though. You take 10 steps back, now you're starting to draw a bit better. Your proportions are a bit off, but you are drawing full body characters with faces, with eyes. You're getting comfortable with that. You take 10 more steps back. Okay, now you're really starting to cook, right? You're actually starting to put together some pieces that looks like your favorite animes that you're drawing, or your favorite cartoon characters. And I'm speaking from personal experience. I'm actually thinking about my personal journey right here. Because I actually started off drawing Kingdom Hearts characters. I love drawing Sora. However, every time I drew Sora, his face was blown the fuck up, hair all over the place. It was terrible. So then I took 10 steps back. Now I'm able to draw Goku. I'm learning about shading. But it's still terrible. Proportions are ass. His shoulders are bigger than his biceps. Nothing is equally proportioned at all. So I started watching videos. Right? I started watching all these videos and learning about people doing the circle method, shit like that. I'm seeing them use fucking rulers and all kinds of different shit. But after watching those videos, I'm starting to get more comfortable with what they're doing. So now I'm able to draw Naruto or Sasuke or Zoro or whoever the fuck, Spider-Man, and I'm doing it with equal proportions. Everything's proportioned now, right? So then I entered the world of digital art. Because I won't lie, I was not doing this originally. Everything that I did before was traditional. I had sketchbooks filled. I had canvases filled. So then I get into the world of digital art. I took 10 more steps back. And it feels like I'm starting all over again. If you guys were to see my first digital piece, that shit looks terrible. Shit looks terrible. Matter of fact, hold on. I can pull it up. This right here was my first ever digital piece, right? January 24th, 2023. I was drawing this on a fucking Amazon Kindle, and I was using Medibang, Medibang paint. And if you look at this looks pretty shitty compared to my sketches, right? My sketches look pretty fire. And that's because, again, 10 steps back, I'm entering new territory. So I had a shitty stylus also, but I'm getting used to the brushes on digital art. This was a pretty cheap software as well. So new territory, proportions are kind of off. I just wanted to get a feel for my first digital art. I was happy as shit to get into it. Boom. So now I keep practicing, right? I'm getting more comfortable with it. I'm understanding, or trying to understand, how layers work. As you can see, the coloring is kind of terrible on these. It looks fire, but like, knowing what I know now, I would never go for some shit like this. I was coloring it all on the same layer. And I didn't know how layers worked back then. So we keep going. I'm getting comfortable with shading, with blending. Boom. Now I'm getting more comfortable with it. I'm being repetitive with it. Every day I'm learning some new shit. Right? Learning some new shit every day. So boom. I did a art trade with my friend. And I was asking her for some genuine advice on like how I can improve my art, because I always look up to her art. Shout outs to Lulu, bruh. Her art is fucking tough. As a matter of fact, she's the one that really got me back into art for real. And she really inspired me to want to do digital art. So I asked her for some advice, right? And she was saying that overall art is subjective, and she really does fuck with my art. The one thing that she asked me to, or not asked me, but like just threw out there as like a general critique, is the line art itself. And that's why I'm like teaching y'all now about line art. She was saying that again, like everybody's art style is different, and she fucking loves my art. She was just saying that like the line art itself is kind of scratchy. This is my first digital piece on Procreate, where I wanted to try straight line art. Now remember, 10 steps back. New software, new territory, but also I'm trying a new style. So, this is my first digital art piece on Procreate. And obviously, me at the time, I fucked with it. But I was also trying something new. And for me, I wasn't fucking with that fully. So I kind of regressed a little bit. The line art here is a bit smoother. I love the lines here. But again, I was entering a new territory, so I was regressing a little bit. So as you can see right here, kind of scratchy. As you can see right here, kind of scratchy. Scratchy is what I felt comfortable with, right? I started watching videos, right? I started watching videos on how to properly do line art. And one, it was encouraging patience. Like, you gotta take your time with your line art for real. You can't just rush the line art. The lines make the piece much more than what it is. But also, I took 10 more steps back as I was learning line art because I was seeing all these digital pieces and I'm like, bro, this shit looks so realistic or so video game like, and I'm fucking with that and I want to learn how to do that. So I learned what's called rendering. I watched a few videos on that and I was learning about rendering. This was my first piece I ever did after learning about rendering. And for me, this was a huge step because, again, new territory, I'm learning new shit. So I continue on with the rendering. Not my best, definitely not, but I'm getting comfortable with the idea of rendering. So then, like I told you, I wanted to get into more dynamic pieces. I want more dynamic angles and shit. So I was struggling with it. And you could probably see that in the sketch here. I was struggling with it and I took a pause from it. And then I woke up, or I dreamt about how I wanted to do this, how I wanted to apply it. So then I came up with this. And I felt like from that point on, the line art got more comfortable. I feel like from that point on, the line art got more comfortable. It could still use work because this shit definitely looks awkward as fuck. But I got more comfortable with doing straighter line art because I was learning about, again, different lines, different amount of pressure. But yeah, you get the gist. My point here is that practice, above all else, genuinely makes perfect. Being repetitive. How do I get better at art? If someone were to ask me that question right now, I would say practice, and I would also say watching videos. Real quick, I'm gonna put you guys on to somebody that I study and still study for rendering, because this person might be the best renderer I've ever encountered on the interwebs. This guy right here, Sam Does Arts. Probably the best person you could watch to learn everything about art and more specifically digital art. I feel like he's the modern Bob Ross. And I'm still learning from him actually. That first piece that I saw with rendering art, I actually learned after watching one of his tutorials on Procreate. So that was pretty sweet. Sorry, that was a big yapathon about like art, but I mean, that's what we're here for. I can't wait to get to the coloring part of this. Finish up these flowers. my question of the day today is, if you could live in one season forever, which one would it be? So I was talking with my girlfriend about this, and we agree mutually that it would either be spring or fall. See, 2017 through 2025 actually would say winter. And that's why I love maturity. I love growth, because you could see the difference in somebody's perspective. So now my current answer would be spring, or it'd still be fall. Spring or fall. And I say this because it's something about the warmness of spring. Because it's not overbearing, right? It's not a stressful heat. It's a comforting heat. And honestly, depending on what part of the world you're located in, it's actually still pretty cold. It's either cold or really hot. Or not hot, but like warm, you know? Picnic weather, beach weather. And I fucking love beach weather. Man. Let me know in the comments, which one you choose. I definitely choose fall or spring. Okay, these flowers are coming along, yes. It's looking pretty good so far. I forgot to unpause the music, hold on. I'm hoping that your guys' Monday goes excellently, or has gone excellently. Assuming I release this on Monday. More than likely I will. I'm debating if I want to add that flower right there. I don't know if I fuck with it. Okay. I feel like for the most part, we have everything. So this is what the line art will look like without the sketch behind it. I know it kind of feels off, and that's because of the fact that we had this sketch behind it. I know as artists, you guys have definitely encountered this. You've had the sketch layer under your line art, and when you take it off, it looks fucking naked. For me, that is always an indicator that I need to add more. And if you feel that way, you also need to add more. So your next question would probably be, what else can I fucking add? Well, shadows. Shadows in the areas that will not be touched by light is a great way. It's a phenomenal way to... Hold on. Phenomenal way to add more detail to your line art. That's why I added this line right here earlier, because I'm going to throw a shadow right there. We're going to connect that line, clean that up. can add some shadows in the pockets. And again, this is my personal art style. It doesn't have to... You don't have to do this, is what I'm saying. This is my personal style. I like to add shadows, and I'm also going to do some hatching. I love hatching. And if you don't know what hatching is, well, you're about to learn, partner. No, I'm not fucking with that shadow. Hatching is essentially, and you've probably seen your favorite animes or manga artists do this. Hatching is just drawing lines, but they're very important and intentional lines because they represent detail. Usually when you put shadows or hatching, you want to be mindful of the direction you want the light to come in. So I want the light to come in from this direction. So I'm going to have the shadows on the opposite. Put some shadows in the back here. Oh. And remember to be intentional. Again, we're having light come from that side. Should I fill this whole area? Because, I mean, it's going to be behind. Let's see how that looks. Nice. Put a small shadow right here. Nah, it's too big. I don't know if I'm feeling that. Let's thug it out. Let's see. Maybe it's the way I'm doing it. Hold on. Yeah, I can kind of get with this. Shoutouts to Procreate and their awesome tools. And that's one thing I've talked about with when it came down to which art medium I prefer digitally. I just love Procreate's UI. I love it. It's so simple to use, easy to navigate. So this specific style of shading, I'll say I'm doing right now, I've learned from a old YouTube artist called Tolg Art. And hold on, I'll pull up their page. Pull up their page real quick. So
Yo, guys.
this was one of the artists that I studied when I was beginning my art journey, or when I wanted to improve, because whenever they did their line art, they would do these specific things with their line art where they would add either darker lines or they would add small shadows like I'm doing within their line art, and it would add so much more detail to their piece. And I didn't see a lot of artists doing this around the time. Yes, you see how he's like, so he has his baseline art layer, right? This is his baseline art layer. Just basic lines like I did at first. But then as he goes on, he starts adding much darker lines for extra detail. So it goes from basic line art layer to this. And I noticed another artist on Instagram that does this. Hold on real quick. I'm very hugely inspired by this artist because they also do similar with their line art. See how they got the shadows right here. And there's another artist that I follow that does the same thing. But I love that shit. It's such a small thing that adds such important detail to your piece. Okay. We're doing amazing on time, and we might get to some coloring today. Okay, we don't want that. I need the music back in. I was entering my flow state. Too thick. Like I said before, this is just personal preference. You do not have to do what I'm doing. See right there, not fucking with that. And honestly, if I stop fucking with this at a certain point, I'm gonna just stop doing it. It's important to remember that this is my... And that's another thing I learned from one of these artists that I study, is everybody has their own art style. So while you can draw inspiration from them and you can take a lot from them, ultimately it's how you draw is how you draw. Alright, now it's time to bring in some hatching. So again, with me, I like to bring in hatching an area. Well, I might add some shadows right here. Let's see. Let's see if I'm feeling that. Nice. With hatching, it's a really small but important detail. There's two different kinds of hatching. There's the straight hatching, and then there's the diagonal hatching. Most times I like to do the diagonal hatching. It's such a small thing that adds so much detail. I'm gonna do the same thing on the arms. A lot of your favorite mangaka use hatching. And a lot of animes have hatching as well. And especially comic books have hatching. Hatching is such a great tool to use. I think with this piece I'm not going to use too much of it. Because I won't lie, this line art by itself looks fire. And I think we're ready to move on to color. Alright, so this is the fun part, and I feel like this is the part that most people come for. On Procreate or on really any software, first off you want to set that line art to reference because it makes the coloring process so much smoother. But if you don't set it to reference, here's what will happen. First, you want to start a new layer under that line art because if you put it above, the color is going to go over the line art, and we do not want that. But here's what happens when you don't have your line art set to reference. I'm going to make his face and arms this kind of green. Here's what happens when you don't have it set to reference. It'll turn the whole canvas green, and we do not want that. We want specific parts green. I think it'll... yeah, it still will color the whole canvas green, and we don't want that. So what we do want is to set that to reference, so that way the system knows that this is our line art layer. And I want his face to be this specific green. Nice. I'm trying to remember what... no, his face was yellow. His neck and arms are green. Okay. So, again, I still want it to be kind of pastel-y. Nice. I like that. And same thing with the arms. Right now, I'm just laying down the base coloring. You're probably wondering, Jeremiah, that's so fucking lazy. You can just color that shit in with your pencil. Trust me, we're gonna get to that, and there will be moments where I take my pencil and I just doodle in small parts that did not get filled. However, we want to be effective with our coloring. You know, if we have the tools to fill in our base coloring, we're gonna damn sure use them. So for the body of this drawing, it's going to be on a separate layer. I like to do my coloring in separate layers because it makes the shading process so much easier. So for the petals, they are pink. Again, I'm going for a pastel kind of color for the base. So I think this is perfect. Honestly, depending on how I feel, I might make it lighter. And I'm rocking with what we got. Yep. See how it's all coming together? So what I'm going to do in the base layer is for the petals that are on the outside, I'm gonna make them darker and darker. So these ones right here, they're gonna be darker. And the ones on the outside of that, they're gonna be even more dark. Cool. So we got the skin down. I am gonna fill the eyes right now, even though it looks like they're white because that's the background color, but if you turn the background off, there wouldn't have been any white. And I do want this to wind up becoming a PNG, so yeah, we're gonna do that now. Alright, cool. We got the body down. We'll name this body. Alright. Time for another layer. We're gonna do the clothes. My boy is a blue collar worker, so it only makes sense that we make this a type of blue. I definitely want it lighter than that. Maybe a bit lighter. Yeah, I'm digging that. I have a pimple like right on my lip and that shit hurts. So for the sleeves, because they're rolled up, I want them to be a bit darker than the shirt. Okay, that's that's way too damn dark. Way too damn dark. Yeah, that'll do. Cool. For the pants, I want them to be brown, because why not? Now, what color should I make this tie? Nah, too pastel-y. Let's look up some fire color combos, because I might change the color of the shirt. I kind of want this to be an earthy tone. I do feel like these already are earthy tones. I'm not feeling it. I feel like the shirt is kind of throwing me off. make it work. Sorry, I'm also a huge believer in the sandwich method. And if I can't put some, this kind of works. Let's try a different kind of green. Maybe darker? Nah, I'm feeling the brown. Okay. We got a fit assembled. I almost completely forgot the rest of his damn shirt. Oop, that's not a part of his shirt. That's empty space. Alright, we're doing pretty solid so far. We gotta finish his belt. So I'm actually gonna get rid of this patch right here. Oh my god, why is it beige? Okay, never mind. There's a lot there that I need to fix and I don't feel like doing it. I'm just gonna tighten up certain spots. This looks pretty solid so far. We're gonna do his name tag, and I think we'll do the flowers too on a separate layer. This is a rose, so we're gonna make it red. Again, I kind of want these to be pastel-y, if I can. Make that a dark red. We're gonna make this the same color as his petals. Same thing as we did before, where on the outside petals we make it a bit darker. However, this one I'm gonna make a bit more vibrant. Yeah, it's pretty much gonna be a mini-me. This one I'm gonna make a blue. We'll make it like a royal blue. Same thing, I'm gonna make those outside petals darker. Let this be a reminder to myself to make this an actual fit in real life. Not the specific tie, but definitely get a tie with some flowers on it. And whatever the harmonious color is for that, we'll make it, yeah. I'm a huge believer in harmony colors. So for this specific part, I'm actually going to use my stylus. Either that or I'll use the tool, because there's a lot of many flowers here. We're going to make this one lavender. A lavender kind of purple. Alright, nope. Gotta turn that pen on, Suki. Nice. And then we're just gonna clean up any areas I missed. Alright, we got our lavender down. Time for our sunflower. We're gonna use a really dark brown. And then I'm gonna make it darker, and we're gonna kind of draw a circle in the middle here. Actually, no, fuck it. I'm gonna just leave that for the shading. Alright. And then slowly, we're just gonna add in our yellow. Oh. I don't want that. Okay, actually, I'm just gonna use the tool. Remember, people, work smarter, not harder. I mean, if you like the coloring aspect, by all means, take your time. Trust me, I usually spend a lot of that time on the shading because I feel like that's where the most important details need to be. Cool. And similar with the lavender, we're just going to clean up any spots I missed. Nice. Last one. This one, we're gonna make you a seafoam. Seafoam is a very underrated color in my opinion. And I'm a huge believer in harmonies. We're gonna make that a bit lighter though. There we go. I forgot to add this detail to his belt. But that right there is gold. Cool. Alright. All we gotta do is name tag and then we're done. I'm gonna do the name tag separate because I definitely want specific shading on here. And we'll make it a darker yellow because I want that gold to pop. Cool. All the base coloring is done. And it looks like we're still doing really good on time. However, I know that for this next part, I do not want to be rushed. So, for now, we're going to put a pin on it. And I will see you lovely folks in the next session. I hope that you have a wonderful night, evening, morning, whatever type of day you watch this in. And in the next session, I'll go over how we shade. I hope that you have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.